And firstly, I would like to thank Stephen for the opportunity that has given us to give this presentation. As you can see from the title, the presentation is about script engine for adventure games. You will understand why for adventure games, of course, our first video game is an adventure game. So practically I'm Clint Mitzi, my colleague is Luqa. We're the founders of 5 1/4 Games. So, who are we? We are 5 1/4 Games. I'm an indie company, software development company, and most interesting part of our company is that none of us is full-time on the project. We're 12 members, everybody is doing it on part-time basis. Why is 5 1/4? I don't know if you remember the floppy disk, and the 8, I think it was 8.5 inch or 8.25 inch, was the first floppy disk in the 70s, quite a long time ago. This is 5 1/4 floppy disk. Don't ask me why I got one and from where I got this. It's Microsoft's mouse setup basic menus. I think it was before Windows 95.
Maybe before.
Maybe before. Yes, and the most interesting is that these were during the 80s, so that's around 28 years ago. And there's also the 3.5 inch phones. So that's why we decided to name it 5 1/4 Games. So your first game. So this practically here was the concept of how we arrived for Time Heist. So we had said, okay, let's get inspiration from other games. We cannot. It's nice to reinvent the wheel, but why can you need to reinvent the wheel when you can take inspiration from other games? Call of Duty, for example. It's not 100% novel game. And we asked this question, what makes a memorable game? What is the most game that we all remember? We started, the first game that you ever played. That's, I think, a memorable game. And we started listing down a number of games which all affected our ideology in Time Heist. And there were a lot which were, I don't know if you ever played, where is Carmen San Diego? Yes. Monkey Island, and Seventh Guest. That was a really, really nice game. Some pictures if you remember the game. Old 90s. But there was a particular game, Adventure. I don't know how many of you, those who used to go to Stella Maris Balsam, probably remember that game. But this was the game that we used to play at school. And funnily enough, everybody that used to be in my class during that year still, even although they are non-gamers, still remembers playing them. Why? Because it was the first game that you ever played. And it was interesting because it was an educational game. Unfortunately, I couldn't find, the one that we had in school was about the Romans. I couldn't find anything about that game, like screenshots and that stuff. But I found another version which was about Egypt, which has the same concept. And the game was simple, where you had Egypt, you choose a place, you're a nice archaeologist, you used to dig up stuff, and if you're lucky enough and not break the stuff, you may find some small remains. For example, here we found a measuring pot. And you've got this, and most interesting, not only you've got the stuff, but it gives you a nice description. For example, this pot was probably used for measuring large amounts of liquid or grain. And when you're a kid, you're playing this game and you're also learning. So that is the idea of having education through games. And you manage to get a lot of parts and build the pot. And actually that pot you could rotate and see it in 3D. For 1990s it was a big wow. But I think the most interesting part that I used to find is that you could go back to the past. And when you've got, for example, this tablet here, and you need to find like who was his father, who was the owner of the tablet. And it was nice because it gave you the experience that you're going back to the past, meeting the people and seeing like who were the characters. And practically it was a game, a puzzle game, where you used to learn a lot. Although it had some funny stuff like you going back in the past with the hat and with the shorts and with the shoes, not so politically correct, but still, it was a very nice game, and as that guy they mentioned, probably still remembers it today. So,
This is the other, actually.
actually yes, you can buy it. Even Amazon. I found it on Amazon. Also, education in games isn't a new concept, and it's still used. For example, this SimCell, it's a game which is currently in development by the company. The most interesting part is that you are a nanobot in a cell, and your mission is to do some stuff which practically educates the player how a cell works. So, we said, okay, let's see how our starting skill set. We have got programming knowledge. We can basically do some game design from our experience playing games, but what about that? I don't know how to draw apart from hand. What about script writing? If you see my kind of script, you get your eyes quick here. And say, what the heck? And what about audio? I do not understand anything on audio or marketing. Oops, we've got a big problem. So we started, the first part of Time Heist is to get the team, the A team. There's another 80 squad team. And today we have 2 programmers, we've got 1 game designer, 4 artists, and the artists here are 2 of them teach in AMCAS. We've got an artist who's a student, and the guy that is managing the art team, a professional, and he do commercials on 2D and 3D. We also have got a professional script writer, and he is headed by a person which we call a history consultant. You will understand in a couple of slides why we need a history consultant. We've got a guy who is creating the audio for the game, we've got the testing and QA person, and we've got also the marketing and HR, who's responsible by that woman over there. So, what about our game? Our game is named Time Heist. As you can obviously understand, it's an educational game. It's a 2D point-and-click adventure game, similar to Monkey Island, for example. It's themed around Maltese history, so that's the catch. And the aim of the game is to explore Maltese islands in different eras. The thing is that you've got some artifacts which are getting stored in the past, and without giving a lot of spoilers, you need to go back in the past and or capture the villain or save the artifact according to the story.
One thing I would like to mention as well is that though we are categorizing it as an educational game, it's not an educational game in the traditional sense. It does not force feed
you like
any information, but we are trying to cultivate in the player an interest in Maltese history. So by playing the game, a person would be more interested and maybe actively after closing the game or when at school pay more attention to the history lecture or research a particular Maltese era online and that kind of stuff. So we do not want to force feed information, we want to cultivate an interest in Maltese history.
So, some just, if you can say then, spoilers, some stuff that we are
concept art
currently designing is that obviously you're going back to the past, we're going to meet a number of famous Maltese people, that Romulus, and I found out he was the owner of the Roman villa, and that guy, which will be a very, very important character, again, is certainly Zami. With the mustache and the glasses. And also you will visit a number of locations in Malta. This is a concept art, for example, of the temples in Gozo. The most interesting part is that we are going to get the feel how Malta changed during the years. For example, you can go during, for example, the 9th century Valletta being built, and then go into a different era and see Valletta, for example, during the British. Doesn't mean that in the game it's going to be like that, but it's just an example.
Valletta being built and Valletta being born.
Yes. Unfortunately. So, just to close up, this is our teaser poster, where practically you can see the villain stealing. This practically will be our first act, where the villain is stealing those small statuettes which were found in Gold Zone, which can't hear Gold Zone. The Charleston staircase. And so I just end my part by saying the motto of the game is leap through time, save history, and finally finish your homework. I leave the chair to Alan.
So this second part of the presentation will be focused more closely on narrative in video games and the script engine we have developed for Time Heist. So I wanted to start off this part of the presentation by doing a reflection on what is a narrative, and by reflecting I mean going to Wikipedia and looking up the definition of narrative. And according to Wikipedia, a narrative or story is an account of connected events presented to a reader or listener in a sequence of written or spoken words, or in a sequence of moving pictures. So this is very clear, and it's a very concise description of what narrative is. But why is it so important in video games? Game developers have been using narrative in their video games since the beginning of video game development. And narrative is very important because it allows the game developer to give context to the gameplay and to give meaning to your actions in the game. Using narrative, the cluster of pixels on the screen is no longer just some lights moving across the screen, but it's a person who is running across a platform, leaping across bottomless chasms, and acting surprised when he encounters an enemy. Or even though the pixels don't show it, you know that when the character defeats the enemy, you know that he smiles, even though the pixels don't show that. And that's the power of narrative. So it's a tool by which the developer, the game developer, can connect and affect the player's mind. So it's very obvious now why narrative is so important in video games. But having said that, do all video games use narrative? No. Games such as Tetris don't. Games such as chess, video game chess doesn't. But one needs to be careful because some games do make subtler use of narrative. And one good example would be Trail of the Treasure Snatcher by PixieWorkshops. You might be fooled into thinking that it's a game you can kind of pick up and play, and there isn't much narrative to it. But the opening cutscene does give context to your actions in the game. So even though it might seem that some games do not make use of narrative at all, most probably they do make use of some narrative in a way or another. So a few slides about the evolution of narrative in video games. I think this is a very interesting subject because narrative has indeed evolved throughout the 40-odd years of game development history. The past. This is combat for the Atari VCS. I'm not sure if it was an late 70s or early 80s game, but this game had almost absolutely no narrative, bar some stuff contained within the box and the box art itself. Other than that, you had no narrative. This is Star Trek Strategic Operations Simulator for the Atari VCS, I think, as well. And this game makes use of the whole franchise of Star Trek to lubricate kind of the player's imagination into filling the narrative gap. This is Attack of the Mutant Camels by Lamasoft, and I think they made a very clever use of kind of a legal loophole to make use of third-party intellectual property without actually, owning the rights to the intellectual property. Star Wars. It's very obvious that the llamas or camels are a reference, a thinly disguised reference to those machines. But as you can see, this is one thing Ron Gilbert, who was game developer on Monkey Island 1 and 2, has to say about storytelling, a narrative in the past. Storytellers and artists of this era were trying to bring the experiences they dreamed of, having grown up on a diet of literature, science fiction, comics and computers. But that desire was tempered by systems that were simply not capable of delivering the breadth of detail they reached for. So basically, games in the past had relied very heavily on the player's imagination to fill in the narrative gaps. The games themselves didn't offer, the consoles didn't offer the technology needed to insert the narrative in the game, so they relied on out-of-game material to kind of help the player fill in the narrative gaps. This is the in-between, so this is the area between the past and the present, and it's an area where technology started developing, and games started including some in-game narrative. This is Fantastic Dizzy, one of my favorite games for the Amiga 500, and it did contain some in-game narrative. This is Whisked. I'm sure by Sensible Software. I'm sure the developers on this game were quite stoned when they developed this game.
Yep.
But it does contain some in-game narrative as well. But you still get some outside of game material, such as really large boxes and thick manuals with some stories in the manuals. This is the Elder Scrolls Arena, which is the first installment of the Elder Scrolls series by Bethesda in 1994. And as you can see, the Elder Scrolls games make heavy use of narrative. And this game did include lots of narrative inside the game as well. But it did also include external material, books and this kind of stuff.
Okay.
So,
a great improvement in graphics.
Yeah. So the improving technology of this time meant that there was a decreased reliance on the player's imagination to fill in the narrative gaps. Although they still made use of lots of outside of game and printed material. And in the present, we've moved to a time where narrative is completely in game. There's, I'm sure you know, a Portal, where you've got the kind of split personality of GLaDOS and the narrative she delivers. There's Skyrim. And following this, there's Mass Effect 2. Again, very story-centric, very dependent on that narrative, and absolutely all of the narrative is contained in-game. So today we have seen a total shift to in-game narrative, and with the advent of digital distribution, outside of game material has practically vanished altogether. Nowadays, unless you buy a collector's edition of a game, you will not get practically any additional material bar the game itself. So we've shifted from the past, in which all of the narrative, in which there was a heavy reliance on the player's imagination, to the present, in which everything is practically spoon-fed to the player. So, how do video games achieve narration? Traditionally, this is done through the use of in-game actors. So, the characters in the game would, through their actions and through their conversations, would narrate the game to the player. And as I mentioned, an interesting thing about narration in video games is that it's not only performed through conversation but also through actions. And this is very much like movies. So actors in the movies, in a movie, convey the narrative through their script, through what they say, and through what they do. And practically the director is in charge of the scriptwriter, and the director is in charge of what the actors say and do. So we thought, why not give this power to the scriptwriter who will be working on our video game, on Time Heist? Why not provide him with the means of dictating what happens, what characters say, and what happens in the game? And this is where the script engine developed for Time Heist comes in. It started life as a conversation engine. So when we started working on this concept, we started working on something much simpler, something which would take as input as kind of a conversation file, load it in memory, and play out the conversation between two characters, three characters, or even a monologue. And this was all nice and clean, but as we said, narration isn't just about the talking. There are actions which narrate as well. And we continued on this idea, continued evolving the idea, and eventually came out with the script engine, which also supports action, conveying action in your video game. So now we're not just talking, we're actually doing it. So we started by trying to define which are the basic elements of narration in our video game. And we decided that we want these 4 elements to be the kind of the atomic elements, the most important, the critical elements of the narration in our video game. And this is part of the presentation where things start getting a bit technical. So you might want to put your thinking hats on. So we've got lines, choices, options, and actions. Lines are basic lines of dialogue, of script. So a character would own a line, and he would say it out. He would speak out the line. Choices is it's the point in a conversation or a narrative where the player is given a choice and he has to choose a possible outcome. Options are the various options available in a choice, and actions, famous actions, they are non-verbal pieces of narration. And so how does this work? We wanted to connect these four atomic elements, so lots of instances of these 4 atomic elements in a tree. Because unlike a movie, narrative or storytelling in a video game isn't linear. It branches. So we developed a way in which inter-element links would be used to form a narrative or a flow of story, kind of. Elements are linked in the form of a priorities list, and elements can be deactivated and activated and deactivated. By elements, I'm always meaning lines, choices, options, and actions. More on this later on. We developed a way to allow the script to affect the rest of the game and vice versa, and this is very important. In Time Heist, as in many other adventure games, the game affects the script, and the other way around. The script affects the game. So you might get situations where if you make a particular dialogue conversation option, this will have an impact on the rest of the game. Something will change in the game. And vice versa. If you, for example, punch this guy in the face, this guy will act in a hostile fashion, so his dialogue with respect to yourself will change accordingly. We used conditions, and more on that later, as an interface between the script and the game itself. And conditions are also what determines whether an element is active or not. More on this later on. So I'm going to start going into the script file itself. So this is the file which will be loaded into the script engine, and the script engine would take this in, create the script, the script structure and the different script structures, link them together and feed them into the game. So the game would run through these structures, this tree of structures, this hierarchy of structures, and play out the conversation. So conditions are one of the are some of the elements in the script file. Conditions, I mentioned conditions earlier over here. Conditions are what are used as an interface between the story and the rhythm in the game and the script, and they determine whether an element is active or not. So a script file would have a single condition list with many conditions, and conditions only have a unique identifier and a description. The description would be kind of a friendly name to the condition. And roles would represent the various roles in the script. So if there are, I don't know, 5 characters in this act of Time Heist, you'll have 5 different roles in the script. And each role would have a unique identifier and a friendly name. So that's very, very simple and straightforward. Later on in the script file, you will see elements which refer to roles and conditions via their unique identifiers. Now, this is kind of the common part of the script elements. So, as you remember, there are 4 different script elements: the lines, choices, options, and actions. And this is the common part, the part of the script file which is shared by these 4 elements. So all actions, conditions, options, and lines have these attributes. Unique identifier, persistence, whether it is a one-time persistent or condition-based element. If it's a one-time element, it's available only once. So once the element, the line, or the choice, or the option is visited, it's not available anymore. It's kind of removed from the conversation hierarchy. Persistent is always there, and condition-based is the kind of most interesting and most powerful, because it determines whether an element is active or not based on the required condition list, which is the next attribute. The required condition list is a series of references to conditions defined previously over there. And if all the conditions in the required condition list are satisfied, then that particular the particular script element is active. Then you've got the satisfied condition list and the unsatisfied condition list. Basically, what these are collections of conditions which are set to satisfied or unsatisfied as soon as the current script element is visited. And delay, it's a simple pre-element and post-element delay in milliseconds. So a time delay which occurs either before the element is visited or the line is displayed, for example, and after the line is displayed. And now we go to the element specifics, so the specific attributes for each of the 4 elements. So we've got the lines. Some elements are of type line. Lines would have owners, so and the owner would be a reference to a role. So this role, the person who will be, the ID which will be in there would represent the character which says, which owns the line of dialogue. So the character which will speak out the line of dialogue. Text, of course, the text of the dialogue. Later on, we will also include a file name, which would represent the audio file containing the voiceover for this line of dialogue, because we want to have the script of the game fully voice acted. Terminator determines whether this element is kind of the terminating element of the conversation. So if it is set to yes, then as soon as the element is visited, the conversation ends. And the next element list. This is a very, very powerful attribute of the line and some other elements as well. And it determines which element I want to visit next after the line element has been visited and kind of consumed. And this would be an ordered list of elements. And the script engine would decide which element to visit next by visiting each of these elements one by one and seeing and going to the first one, which is active. So if the first element in this list is not active because one of its conditions in the required condition list is unsatisfied, then the script engine would move to the next element in this list. And it would go on until either an active element is discovered or the end of the list is reached. Some elements can be choices, and a choice element only has an option list, which is an ordered list of option elements. And then there are the option elements. So some elements are of type option. They would have text, they would have the terminator, and they would have the next element list just like the lines. The only difference between the options and the lines is that the option does not have an owner, because when you are given an option and a choice, it's always the player character who will be making the option and speaking out the line or doing the action which follows. So there is no need of the owner over here. And the other difference is that only options can be in this list, in the option list of choices. So you can't have a line element or an action element as one of the options of a choice. Only options. And the final element type is action. So some elements can be actions. Action would have a description, which is just kind of a friendly name to identify the action, whether it's a terminator and the next element list. So basically these are this is the script file itself. As you can see, as you for sure already noticed, it's a plain text file, XML file format. So there is not much to it except for the thought process and design process of coming up with this system. As you can imagine, the script can get a bit complex, so the script file can get a bit messed up and large, and even to do some simple conversations, it can get a bit complicated. So we want to provide our scriptwriter with some tools to help him create the script. We didn't expect him to just open a text file and start creating the script in XML file format, and we would not like him to commit suicide before the end of the project. So we decided to come up with some tools. One of them will be to help him create the script itself, the script file itself. So they'll have a visual tool with which to create the script itself. And also a playback tool, which would allow him to test his script, the script he created, in a kind of a sandbox environment. And this is what I would like to show you, to give you a demo of the playback tool.
Currently, this was done by the programming department, so the graphics aren't high tech.
Thanks.
3D models tech.
This is what you get if you have programmers do the VR stuff. So it's not going to look nice. And if there are any artists among you, if your eyes start to bleed, you know why.
As you can note, we are using Unity, by the way.
Yes. We use the Unity to implement the playback tool, because we said, might as well start working on the modules and the framework which will be used inside the game to run the conversations themselves. So I've got some controls over here and this box, which will contain the conditions pertinent to the current conversation. Now I'm gonna just load the script file, script test script.xml, and I've got in this script file I've got two conversations.
Obviously, we cannot have inside sword fighting in our game due to the file, but that's an interesting.
It's not that bad and so. I would like to start with this one, the pickup house. And the basic premise behind this conversation is the player character walks up to a mansion, and the mansion is, you can interact with it, and he selects, from the menu, pickup house, which doesn't make much sense, but that's part of the charm of 2D point and click adventure games. You try to do stuff which doesn't make sense. So, as you can see, there's one character profile loaded, and I know it's pathetic, isn't it?
Yes.
And this represents the fact that there will be only one person involved in this conversation. It's the player character himself. And over here I've got just two conditions. So these are the two conditions which are pertinent to this currently loaded conversation. You might get an inkling of what's about to happen if you look at the names of those conditions. Anyway, I can play and pause the conversation so that the scriptwriter would be able to examine the what's happening in the script at his leisure. So, whoa, that's a massive house. Even if I had the superhuman strength to uproot it, how the hell am I supposed to fit it in my pocket? So, that's the end of that conversation. Now, suppose something happens in the game, the player continues playing the game, and somehow he acquires some superhuman strength. So this would be set, this condition would be set by the game, and the player goes back to the house and tries to pick up the house. Whoa. Okay. That's a massive house. With these gloves of superhuman strength, I'll be able to uproot it. But still, how the hell am I supposed to fit it in my pocket? So as you can see, the condition being set has affected the flow of conversation. Even though it's the same conversation logically, it followed a different path based on the conditions chosen. Now let's suppose the player continued playing the game and acquired some very large pockets. Again, whoa, that's a massive house. With these gloves of superhuman strength and these pants of my deep pockets, nothing stands between that house and my inventory. So player picks up house. I'm just going to pause over here. So this is a representation of an action in the game. So the next element in this case was an action, and apparently since we don't have the game itself, we only have this playback tool. We are displaying an action as kind of red text in the middle of the screen and surrounded by square brackets. But in the real case, the game would kind of handle these actions, and in the case of this conversation, it would trigger the animation which would depict the player character moving up to the house, lifting it up and squishing it into his pockets or inventory or whatever. There you go. And that's the end of it. Similarly, if the player discovered the pants of my deep pockets but not the gloves of superhuman strength, the conversation, I'll be able to carry it around in these pants of my deep pockets. But how am I supposed to uproot it without superhuman strength? So the conversation adapts to the current state of the game, to the conditions set. Now this was a very kind of simple conversation. Now what I'm going to do is load up the insult sword fighting conversation, which I tried to recreate the insult sword fighting minigame, or kind of recreate it through the script engine itself. For Monkey Island 1, this was. As you can see, there are two character profiles right now. This represents the fact that there will be two roles in this conversation. Now, this is what happens, again, it's the programmer version of art, when a choice element is visited. So you get, in this case, we get two options, up to a round of insult sword fighting and never mind. If I choose never mind, this would be kind of the end of the conversation, it's a terminator. But if I play again, I choose up to a round of insult sword fighting, conversation continues along that flow. So, right now I paused, characters draw swords, characters fight. So now I'm going to pause, and this would trigger the event in the game which would display the characters fighting with their swords. And what it does as well, this event would also randomly choose an insult from the available insults. Of course, I'm going to have to do it myself in this case. So I'm going to choose insult number 9, which has grown to become my favorite insult of the moment. So the insult is, I got this scar on my face during a mighty struggle. And now I'm given the list of possible comebacks. The correct comeback for this insult would be, I hope you've now learned to stop picking your nose. So, if I choose this particular comeback, automatically the script engine would set the corresponding condition to satisfy, which is chosen comeback number 9. As you can see, this has been set automatically by the script engine. And this happens because, of course, we do have the script engine, so the script engine can affect the conditions itself, but we do not have the rest of the game. That's why I had to set the other conditions myself manually. I hope now you've learned to stop picking your nose. Fight resolves. Now this is the action which would trigger the game to decide whether the round has been won or lost. In this case, it would say that the round has been won, and pause. You win. And the cycle repeats itself. Characters fight, another insult is chosen. I'm going to reset them all and choose a different one. I am pause. And the different insult is dealt out to you. People fall at my feet when they see me coming. And the correct comeback would be, even before they smell your breath. And it goes on and on ad infinitum. So, I'm just going to reset the conversation and reset the options. So, yeah, this is the basic concept behind the script engine and the playback tool, and how we got the script to work for us. So basically, in conclusion, by placing the scriptwriter squarely in the director's chair, we hope to be able to deliver a narrative which is as faithful as possible to the scriptwriter's intention. Ultimately, this will translate to a better gaming experience and therefore a better product. And this is exactly what we want to do. We want to be able to deliver the best product possible, at least the best we can deliver, and via the use of the script engine, we are hoping that the narrative would be of very high fidelity, so it would be as faithful as possible to the scriptwriter's original intention. So that's it from my end. If you have any questions, there's still some time left, a couple of minutes left for questions.
Funny picture.
And photos. So, any questions?
In what stage is the game at the moment?
Currently, we've done a lot of. We finished the game design. The basic plot has been set up. We've got a number of prototypes. This is one of them. We've got around, I think, 3 or 4 prototypes. So practically, we're now starting to developing the game. We actual implementation. Obviously, it's similar to a software development life cycle. When you need to design the game, you need to see what resources, you need to do the required prototypes to try out how stuff will look. And currently we're starting, in fact, we've got a meeting tomorrow with the whole team to develop the first part of the game, the tutorial, because from the tutorial we're learning ourselves how to develop the game. We're aiming to finish the game by the end of next year, hopefully. So yeah, we can say that we are now starting like pushing down the gas pedal and hoping to get the game done.
TLDR, early. So there's still much we need to do.
Was this script engine, let me rephrase it, did you come up with the need of creating a script engine as a result of starting designing the game and developing the game, or was it the other way around? You immediately said, look, let's create a script engine and build the game around it.
No, it was the first case. Very definitely.
Like the scriptwriter, we were thinking like how he's gonna do all the combinations and all the stuff and all the actions, and he was like, okay, how I'm gonna draw it on a big huge piece of paper just for one conversation. So we started, okay, let's try to help out the scriptwriter by creating a tool. In fact, we've got another tool which is for example, for lip syncing.
Automated lip syncing.
Automated lip syncing. This is another story. So we said, okay, let's start writing the tool. It will help us from our side to have the playback, which will be eventually part of the game. So it's like mostly like the need arises.
Creating a tool to solve
to solve problem, you can say that. But it will be eventually one of the basic core of the game. So if you played Monkey Island or if you played a lot of narration games, obviously you've got the character and you need to do something. And this can be used for conversations and even actions, for example.
So the great thing about the script engine was that it started off as a very peripheral part of the game, but then evolved into being a core part of the game. I would say the most important part of the game, because through it the director would be able to dictate exactly what happens in the game. As long as the game implements the actions required by the scriptwriter, the script would be the game itself, so the sequence of events itself. And it stands to reason because it's going to be a 2D point-and-click adventure games. They are typically very story-centric. Narrative is very important, so the script engine is a hugely important part of the game itself.
Yes.
Given that you're all working on a part-time basis, sort of, I assume everyone from his own office or space.
Oh.
Yes. How do you actually manage to work as a team?
It's hard.
What's the tools
yes,
that you around it?
It's the first thing is motivation. Everybody who's working on this project, we're a huge team considering that we are 12 people. So it's not a joke to manage 12 people with different experiences. It's one thing that you're managing an IT team, but it's one thing when you're managing artists, scriptwriters, sound engineers. So there's the challenge of getting the different experiences. What we're doing is we're setting up goals. For example, like, okay, we're now having the art team, which is, for example, we're working on this part of the game. So we've got the art team, which is working for the art for that part. The game designer is working out how the mechanics will fall, how the levels will flow, etc. The scriptwriter will work the according script, what's going to happen at quest, etc. Then we set up for a period. We say, okay, we're going to meet in 2 weeks' time. Everybody has his different part. Then we meet. In fact, we've got a meeting tomorrow, and to discuss what we have managed to do and what we discuss and we show all the work that we've done between ourselves, and we try to evolve the project in this kind of
So we during the week we meet after work hours, after 6, for example. In the weekends we meet up during the day. My apartment has become the de facto meeting point for all team members. We also make use of Assembla, which is an online collaboration space. We're trying to make use of it, but kind of the programmers are making more use of it because it's something we're used to do. We commit our code to a repository over there, and we've got a wiki over there, so we create articles and share them and stuff like that. So we are trying to use Assembla as a collaboration tool. We're using Dropbox as well, but I don't like it very much because when we're a large team and lots of people are working on the same stuff, possibly we end up stepping on each other's toes with Dropbox. But
we make
it doesn't go. Yes.
I think it's also important to say that you have an HR marketing person who provides good food,
coffee, tea,
everyone has alcohol,
organizes very nice, interesting team activities.
So just make sure people.
Alcohol makes a big difference on the meeting, on the fundament that.
Yes, well, I'm actually doing a master's in creativity and innovation, and it's proven that alcohol in moderate amounts helps creativity. So I try to give it to them.
Just to be clear, we're not condoning the use of alcohol.
In moderate amounts.
Disclaimer. Thank you, Ellen.
Thank you very much.
Suġġerilkom tagħmlu like fil-Facebook page tagħna għall-updates dwar il-logħba dwar affarijiet li
Give them the
500 Quarters games. Just search Facebook 500 Quarters games.
U min jixtieq isir karattru fil-logħba.
Yes, you're casting.
Li qed nippruvaw nagħmlu wkoll li ġast anki peress li l-logħba hija fuq Malta anki membri bil-pubbliku jieħdu sehem. Science in the City, we had organized a very successful audition for voiceovers. And now we've got another sort of competition, nominate a character campaign where you nominate a Maltese character which you would love to be in the game as an NPC. You probably can nominate yourself and find yourself, for example, like a prehistoric guy wandering around. And so that's up to you. Just follow us on our Facebook page and we've got all the updates.
Basically what we've received already, some people, mostly children, but we do have some older people who want to be in the game, have created sort of a character for themselves. Someone with their pet, for example, and they've explained how they can go through time and help out and, sort of creating a story. And then when we have a number of nominations, we'll go through them and say, okay, this one has been chosen and this one has been chosen. And the art team will draw the character, the person up, and we'll put them in Time Heist.
So this is just maybe because you'd be interested. This is the lip syncing tech demo which we had for Science in the City because Marita mentioned Science in the City. So I can record myself. Hello, testing, 1, 2, 3. Testing, 1, 2, 3. And hopefully if everything still works fine since Science in the City, because things tend to not work when you want them to work, as most of you programmers would know. Hello, testing, 1, 2, 3. Testing, 1, 2, 3. It's not exactly perfect, but there's something there.
Considera li numru anki ta' even
Modern
day games, just open 1, 2, and 3, and like it's just the same animation. You want it to be a bit more creative. Yes.
Is it going to be in Maltese or English?
No. In fact, the game we're aiming to do it in English. And the thing is, it's one thing when you do it in one language, but it's challenging to do it more than one language. Not technical, but the challenge is obviously you need to rewrite the script, you need to record the people, etc. So we're aiming to get the game done in English. But with future patches with free DLC. So we will make a also a Maltese version, Maltese script. But obviously, to create a Maltese script, to do all the Maltese report, it takes a lot of time. So for the game, it will be done in English.
Which brings up a very important point, I think. You know, we're mentioning localization, technical tools, marketing, artwork, and all this stuff. I mean, it brings out the fact that basically we're all learning. You know, different aspects. We're small teams, you 12 people, but still, in your own capacity, everyone is working on his own kind of department. With other companies, I mean, consider myself. Recently, it was just a one-man team. Now we've got two other behind the scenes back there. We're now a team of 3. So bit by bit, we're growing, and everyone is learning slowly. And I think that sums up the reason why I'm trying to create these workshops. So hopefully, I'm sure that through the presentation today, we've all seen something new, learned something different, got a different perspective of certain stuff. I hope that you know, this will be just the first of a regular series of activities, either talks, discussions, something a bit more hands-on, different kind of things where we can all grow as a digital game development community in Malta. If any of you would like to present your own topic on something you're working on, just share. That's all we're doing here. We've got no agenda basically. Help us spread the word. Today we're 8. We lost half of you somewhere along the way with the rain and the wind. We were going to be about 18, but still, 8 is good for a start. We've got no targets to reach, as long as it's beneficial for all, and we're enjoying doing it by all means. If you want to know more or keep updated about upcoming activities, PixieSoftware.com, Facebook.com/PixieSoftware, Twitter.com/PixieSoftware. Just to stay updated. There are a number of companies and individual developers in Malta doing their own thing. Just try to, grow as a community and get Malta on the map, and help each other out and do the thing we love, basically. So thank you for coming, despite the inclement weather. I really appreciate it. Hopefully I'll see you next time. Thank you.
Thank you.